for those of you who've just come into the recording, we only did some introductions of myself as Dada Dharmavedananda, over 50 years in this mission and naturopathy movement throughout the world inside of the NATAC, N-A-T-A-C, Natural Therapy, Acupuncture, and Chansi section of the medical department. We've got hundreds of persons working throughout the world, working very hard, sincerely. So many are real experts. Ramesh is one of those, and Ramesh Piones, and he is the director of the Trauma Wellness Center in the United States, which goes on beautifully even during the pandemic. Okay, that caught you up, those of you who are just watching this by recording. Now, tonight we are going to be, or today, it's tonight for me, we are going to be discussing some very common points in health, common points in naturopathy, but we're going to be looking at them from a spiritual perspective, from the perspective of yogis especially, many of them. Some things are so important they transcend about whether one is a yogi or not. Let's see. Anyway, Dada Priyaranjan, I think you're checking all of the chat messages because they have so much to do with just the technical setup. And so tonight we will be talking about how our general health affects our spiritual well-being. Somebody's got their microphone open? Yeah, Ramesh. What is the meaning of holistic health? We'll talk about why a vegetarian diet is not the same necessarily as a healthy diet for some yogis, for many yogis, and how to find a good diet to avoid aches and pains and so on. And we will be talking about whether we need to do longer fasting or not, especially if we're already doing fasting regularly, say 2 times or 4 times a month. Is it possible to deal with anxiety by simple lifestyle changes? Can I remain healthy without cardiovascular exercise? How important is that? Why is water drinking crucial for a spiritually developing person? And what's a good water drinking system? And what does kirtan have to do with health? These are the elements that we will be presenting tonight, but we are very happy to deal with any questions you have about health and well-being. So we'll try to make our presentations without taking too much time. So more time is left for questions, but bear with us. We'll see how long it really takes. So we start off with this question. Just a moment. We start off with the question, how does our general health affect our spiritual well-being? And really, what is the meaning of holistic health? I should say straight away that many people, they think that holistic health is very much related with supplements, that we can maintain a very good health if we have the right supplements. But naturopathy, we are not against supplements, and in many cases where there are health requirements, we encourage them where somebody's health is suffering. But in general, for people who are already healthy, don't have any special needs, and their environment is not pushing them, is not depriving them of what they need, if they have a good balanced diet, in general, we don't encourage supplements unnecessarily. Now, why is our general health so much important for our spiritual well-being? Why is our body so much important? The it has been said by, I think I have a guess that almost everybody here is Anandamargis. Anyway, I will refer to the guru of Anandamarga as Baba, and he's given so much material on medical science. It has been said by him and so many spiritually developed persons that all of the diseases of the body or mind, and ultimately death also, is the result of an absence of parallelism between the body and the mind. So that parallelism is related to the concept of crude and subtle. It means to say that as we are trying to make our minds more subtle, which is the spiritual developing process from crude to subtle, the body also needs to become more subtle, progressively, step by step. If it does not, it creates obstacles. So a good natural therapy, a good natural lifestyle is going to enable the body to become more subtle step by step, without which so many problems come. Second is that we want to raise our energy, our kundalini, our spiritual energy, through the spine or sushumna nadi. And when we do that, when we try to do that, the obstacles come from complications in the chakras, knots, K-N-O-T-S. And if any chakra, if the glands of any chakra are disturbed, for example, the adrenal glands or the thyroid gland or the pancreas or the sexual organs are disturbed, then the chakra will also have a knot in it or more than one knot in it. And it will be very difficult, extremely difficult, not impossible, but very difficult for the kundalini to rise through such a blocked chakra. So the health of the body and the mind, especially the glands here, which is affected by both the body and the mind, the hormonal secretions, is so much related. So good care of our body it gives a greater chance for the chakras to be free. At the same time, we need to develop a strong nerve system. We need to have strong nerve fibers. Swami Vivekananda, he said, if I have 10 persons with nerves of steel, then I can establish a revolution in India. That was if you've not heard of Swami Vivekananda, he was the first yogi to dynamically bring yoga and meditation to the West. And he was a very bold man. So our nerves are critically important. The nerves are affected not only by nervous activity, of course, stress through trying to serve the society or for any reason that stress is developed, overcoming it through spiritual ideation or through psychological balancing of oneself automatically strengthens the nerve system. But besides that, the nerve system is made stronger by the practice of asanas, by our exercise, a general exercise, and if our food is conducive. So there are many factors which, if they are in order on the physical level, not only the psychic level, will enable the nerves to become strong. If the body is weak or has complications, the nerves, even a person is doing a lot of work with the mind, nerves will have trouble. If a person who has strong nerves becomes completely exhausted due to the work or not getting enough sleep or like that, the nerves will automatically become weakened. So this is the next factor, why the body is so much important. In fact, I remember that when I was not yet an Acharya, but I was in India and I was near to the end of my training, and Baba was in jail at the time. I heard from somebody who'd been in the jail with Baba. When I asked him, when he told me that Baba had been speaking about me, I asked him, did he say anything negative about me? And he said that, yes, Baba mentioned that you were cheating. You were cheating on your evening asanas. You were pretending that you were doing, but you weren't doing. So that shocked me because nobody knew that thing. And since that moment, I've done my very best to do asanas twice a day. Even this evening, I couldn't, if one doesn't have much time, okay, do a couple of asanas. So I follow that when I get time, and I often get time. I usually get time, I do a full set. So why is that so much important? Well, I've been explaining it. In any case, we have a system to follow. If we follow that system, not only psychologically, not only in work, not only spiritually, but also physically, we're going to get, we will be able to progress on this path much, much better. Our experience over all these years, and we've been running real centers now for 16 years, although we started some experimental centers even years before that. So we've had thousands of students, many thousands of students. I think we made a rough calculation at one point of having over 60,000 students around the world who've gone through our different programs. And we've seen, not occasionally, not in many cases, but in so many cases, that people say that their meditation improves through doing the detox work on their body and through being in the proper environment for their physical health. This is because this happens especially because the intestines are not full and heavy of anything, but surely they get rid of, through a detox process, they quickly get rid of the undigestible material that got stuck in the intestines. When the intestines become light, and then other elements of the body that have toxins, organs and so on, they also have the chance to let their toxins out, which was not possible with that blocked intestine. There's a principle here that if the digestive system is busy with digesting, then it cannot give energy to cleaning and healing. So we reverse that when we do a detox, and there are many kinds of detox. We'll be talking about that a bit and even more during the course, because we are here to definitely to encourage everybody to join the Tantric Rejuvenation course, which will be September 21 to 25. I think all of you have heard about it. Many of you have registered for it, and I know it's going to be a beautiful, very beautiful course. We'll talk about it a little bit more toward the end. So let us all get that experience of seeing our meditation significantly improve within just 1 and 2 and 3 days of effort. At the same time, to make our health really good, there are other factors. There's general exercise. There's the sun, drinking water. Many factors are there to make a better body and to make better meditation. Now, so many of our senior meditators, Margis and Acharyas, have physical problems. Why is that so? Ramesh will be talking about it, but I'll just say that it is, just for example, if people are eating a lot of fried food, they eat very late, they don't drink water properly, they don't do sufficient exercise, then of course we will have problems. It's natural. So we need to look at that. and diagnose what is not only what is our condition, but what is the cause. Some people will say, well, we cannot change our food because this is our culture. Our culture is heavy food. It's our culture. But the thing is that everyone will say that. All the cultures will say that. And I prefer to call it, instead of culture, I'll prefer to call it pseudo-culture. Sorry, but that is my limited perspective. So there are many causes why the body is not subtle. And as we go on tonight, let's talk about that more and more clearly. So I'd like to turn over the mic to Ramesh to continue with his points. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Dalji, for the introduction and for those good points. And I want to, from the beginning, stress something that Dalji said, which is that truly holistic medicine or holistic health is not about using supplements. I am a very good example of that. When I was in my early 50s, I studied Ayurveda about 15 years ago, and I was learning a lot of things about herbs. During that same time, I had a chronic illness, and I tried so many different herbs, different supplements, all kinds of cures, simple cures that I read about on the internet. And some of them gave me some temporary relief, but really there was no real change. And the reason for that is something that Hippocrates said 2,500 years ago. He said, your food is your medicine and your medicine is your food. Now, that is not the whole package, but that is a very, very important part of this. That, in other words, the underlying habits we have every day, they are so much more important than the supplements and the simple nutritional supplements that we are being told will solve everything. What helped for me finally was to detox. I needed a detox. I had been a vegetarian since I was 19 years old, doing meditation, fasting, the dry fasting in Ananda Marga, but my underlying diet was not good. And plus, during that time, I had a lot of stress, which is what we're going to talk about right now. So is it possible to deal with stress and anxiety with some simple lifestyle changes? This is one of the very important things that you'll learn in this course, is that in Ayurveda, there's a saying, doing the opposite will heal you. If you're cold, well, get warm. Very simple teachings like that. So why is it that we, when we are stressed or have anxiety, why is it that it affects our health? Well, it affects us in different ways. Some people that are generally thin and very active people, they tend to try to outrun their stress or anxiety by starting new projects, leaving the stress behind, but really you're not able to leave the stress behind. So for a person like that, the solution is to calm down and to become more systematic in food habits, in meditation and asanas. For another person that tends to get very excited, frustrated, maybe even angry, for that person, also it is very important to calm down and to take care of themselves and to do some self-analysis. And the different food habits of the different people are also different. Some people, they stop eating while they're stressed, and then other people are eating more when they're stressed, or ending up on the couch. And then, over the years, which happened to me, my stomach got bigger, and so, in other words, the food habits we have and the other habits we have when we're dealing with stress is very, very important. And to understand that is so important. And those are things that you learn when you study at the various wellness centers, and you will learn some of these things during this course as well. So these type of very practical, simple issues are so important to learn, and as I said in the beginning, to figure out what is it that triggers us to get off balance, and then to learn what is it that brings us back into balance, doing the opposite of what we tend to do when we are anxious or stressed. You know, we can say, why is it that, you know, God or the divine created the world in this way, made it somewhat complicated? But the only thing we can do to really answer that is to figure out how to solve it. As Baba was saying many times, that struggle is the essence of life, and to make that struggle, that challenge, into something positive, into something that really makes us dynamic. So those of us who have a tendency to procrastinate and become more lazy when we're stressed and eat more, we need to get more active, more dynamic, to get out of that rut, to get out of that stagnant energy. Those who tend to get angry and frustrated, they need to learn to be more loving and caring, and especially with themselves. And those who have a tendency to run all over the place and to lose their focus and concentration, they need to get into a more peaceful, regular lifestyle. So these are some of those key things that are needed to solve stress and anxiety in our life. So with that, I want to pass the mic back to Dadaji.
Thank you, Ramesh. We are going to be passing the mic back and forth. But I want to quickly comment on what Ramesh said, and that is that he was referring to the Ayurvedic body-mind types, and without my knowing, because I didn't know it in those days, you know, I'm a person of Pitta-Vata mentality. That means that the Vata mentality means the mind is going here and there. In fact, I had a kind of psychology when I was young, that one should be ready to change one's direction on the drop, you know, on the movement of a dime, on the slightest thing. So my life was constantly changing, and I thought that was good. But fortunately, when I got into spiritual practice, I really started to follow lot of system, regular, and that was the cure of that over tendency, of that Vata tendency. What he was referring to in terms of dealing with anxieties, it's really very fundamental. Now, what I want to speak about just now is whether rather than tell you what the point is, I'll refer to one brother without saying his name, very good person. And this happened, roughly speaking, at least 20 years ago, 21 years ago. So I was staying in the house. The father had invited me to stay in their house, and the son, he was a real mess of a boy. He had flunked out of secondary school. He'd become an alcoholic. But watching me, he got very interested in fasting. And he suddenly announced one day that he was going to fast for 5 days. It was a big shock for everyone to hear. And his father told me confidentially, he'll never do it. There's so many things he says. I said, just let's see. But he was so inspired, he did it. And that was the beginning of enormous change, in which gradually he became the first yoga teacher and the first head of the area, I mean, we say Bhukti Pradhan. He became brilliant in philosophy. He ultimately married into a fantastic family, changed totally. And all of that started with that detox. Now, do we need longer detoxing? And the reality is that most diseases, especially chronic diseases, they're related to toxins in our body. That toxins are simply anything that's in our body which should not be there, or which has been there too long. And we have those toxins due to our lifestyle. And in so many cases, yes, we can get rid of them through very simply following the normal yogic practices, including twice a month fasting. But in maximum cases, in so many cases, we still remain sick. So in Ananda Marga's health book, Yoga Treatments and Natural Remedies, it is saying for many different diseases that longer fasting may easily be needed. That's the case for hemorrhoids, for paralysis, for gallstones and kidney stones, for diabetes, asthma, skin problems. The list goes on. These diseases that I've just mentioned, they're directly cited in Yogic Treatments and Natural Remedies, needing longer fasting. So it is a part of an Ananda Marga conception that we may need longer fasting in certain cases. Now, what is that longer fasting? The longer fasting may be on liquid, or in some of those cases, in yogic treatments, it's talking about a fruit diet or a fruit and vegetable diet. So for example, it is said in the same book that those who cannot fast due to some other health obstacle or age or whatever, at least they should go without rice, without fried food, without pulses or legumes. And in many cases, I would add to that list milk and milk products, because the condition of milk nowadays, and definitely bread, wheat products, so that the diet only becomes vegetables and fruits. And this is a kind of fast, we call it a graduated fast. It is also very valid, though it takes a little bit longer. And some of you may get into that kind of a program during the Tantric Rejuvenation session later in the month. Of course, the healthy people don't need long fasting physically. But on the other hand, long fasting, if you have experience with it, then when you get experience with it, it will enable your body to become more subtle. And then you will be able to have better sadhana, better meditation, and then you have the experience when other people need it, that they may be physically needed, and you can speak from your experience how it has been. From a purely spiritual perspective, I remember when Dada Ashimananda, he was one of the first, maybe the first Dada that was offered to learn Vishesh Yoga, the higher meditation, from Baba. And Baba said to him, your body is not enough subtle, so I will teach you only if you will go on to a diet of purely fruit for 1 week. And Dada Ashimananda did it, and he learned after that. During the time of longer fasting, whether it is liquid fast or a fruit and vegetable fast or whatever it may be, our organs get rest. Our whole being gets our whole being is affected. Our concentration, our deep thought, our meditation, these undergo change. Now, when you start such a program, you want to set your intention. You want to take a determination how it's going to affect me psychospiritually. And for that purpose, it's very good to maintain a daily journal, which will help you to remember what subtle realizations you had during the time. And you can look back at that journal later on, and it is really very valuable. Of course, when we are fasting, we get more time due to less eating, less time spent in eating. And that's why in Sanskrit, fasting is called upavas, because it gives us time to get, upavas means becoming closer. Means becoming closer to God. So with less time spent in eating, more time can go into meditation. Plus, I think probably we all have the experience, maybe all too frequently, that because our food, our lunch or dinner or eat breakfast is following our meditation, so we may do our meditation for minimum time rather than maximum time to get on to the meal. But when we are fasting, it easily becomes possible to become inspired to do longer meditation. And this is especially true after the first day of fasting. The first day of fasting for all of us, especially in the beginning, it can be a little bit more challenging, but by the time you get to second day or third day, or if you go longer, it's very, very nice. It's beautiful. So when you get that experience, you'll be able to tell others, it's not only not difficult, but I could really feel the benefit from it. And when the fasting is finished, then we don't want to jump into eating really heavy food again. We want to keep our diet subtle as we can for as long as we can, and take advantage of the subtle awareness for as many days as possible. And then we will see that these things go on and on and on in different ways. We keep coming back to it to help us. Ramesh, take it away.
All right. Thank you, Daji. So I'm going to talk about diet and why a vegetarian diet is not necessarily a good diet. And then the question, of course, becomes, what is a good vegetarian diet? This is really important. And this, again, is something that I suffer from. I have been, as I mentioned, a vegetarian since I was 19 years old. But I was eating foods that we consider sattvic, bread, milk products, yogurt, cheese, even sugar is sattvic. But these kinds of foods, when eaten in too much quantities, will have a tamasic effect, and it will be toxic to the body. And that is what happened to me over time. Even though I was fasting, even though I was doing asanas and so on and so forth. So being a vegan or a vegetarian is not enough. I'm reminded of a joke that Dada Nitya Satyananda, those of you who know him know that he's a very funny person. And when he came to the United States, he noticed that people were telling him, oh, sugar is not good for you, Dadaji. But then he discovered that everybody was eating ice cream, and he realized that, well, when the sugar is hidden in the ice cream, then it's fine. And so then he came to me one day and said, now I found the secret of the Americans. The sugar is very bad for the body, but excellent for the mind. So, in other words, we tend to trick ourselves into believing that's, because it tastes good, it feels good, then it must be good. But that is not so. So we need to then ask ourselves, what is a good vegetarian or vegan diet? So these are some of the things that are super important and the basis of this program. What kind of foods do we really need to eat? And what I found, I had an epiphany after a couple of years doing this work, when I realized that the most nutritious, most antioxidant, and nutrient-dense foods are the fruits and the vegetables. And those are the most sattvic foods as well. Those are the foods for the yogis, because as Adaji was saying, those are the foods that makes the body light and the mind light and positive. So those are the kinds of foods that we need to eat. These are the true sattvic food, and that needs to be the basis of us. In addition, and this is another important point, these foods are alkaline. Now, some of you may have been on the internet and done some research, and you may have noticed that there are some controversies regarding what is alkaline food and what is acidic food and so on. But in this course, you'll learn an incredibly simple system. And I've been studying this for the last 7-8 years now, left and right, listening to the keto diet people and other, vegetarians that or vegans and so on. But the system that Daji has developed regarding alkaline versus acidic food is very simple and extremely practical. And in simple terms, the fruits and the vegetables are the most alkaline. Then you have the nuts and seeds in small quantities. Then grains, beans and lentils, which are semi-alkaline or semi-acidic. And then you get into the acidic range, which are all the refined carbohydrates, the white bread and sugar and so on and so forth. And then the most acidic foods are, of course, the meats and the fish and so on. However, there's one type of food in this group that we Margis often eat too much of, and that is deep fried foods, whether that's potato, French fries, or pakoras and so on. Those foods are really not healthy for us. So by detoxing and by changing our diet, we will make our bodies more alkaline, more subtle. It will have an effect on the endocrine glandular system, on the chakras, as Dadaji was talking before, and on our meditation, on our asanas. We will be able to do asanas so much easier because our bodies will become flexible and pain-free. So these points you will learn in much more detail in this class, in this workshop, when you sign up. So back to you, Dadaji.
Thank you. I would even add to that, of course, deep fried is bad for everybody. But for many of us, even the shallow, quick frying, it is, our system may not be able to adjust with that temporarily or even long-term. Anyway, this has to be seen person to person. I'm going to very briefly, and I'd like to, I hope that Ramesh and I can talk as briefly as possible now until we're finished, so that we can really look at your questions. I've been noting some questions down here. I'm encouraging you again, put more questions in the chat. If your question is difficult to chat, you can also, we may call on you if you raise your hand. So we'll try to finish soon. So I want to very briefly talk about cardiovascular exercise. And one of the biggest reasons why this is so much important to talk about among the spiritual aspirants, the Margis, Acharyas, is because in so many of our people, so many spiritually developing people, they don't do cardiovascular exercise significantly. Maybe they'll do a little bit of Kaushiki, a little bit of Tandava. It's not enough. So it has been said in the 9 points of longevity that we need to do sufficient physical labor. And of course, when labor is, you don't have the chance for gardening and sweating and this kind of a thing, or your job is not like that, then it means to do physical exercise. So we can see physical exercise, there's so many kinds. You might do running, you might do fast walking, you might go into a gym, you might do swimming, you might play tennis, you might do aerobic dancing with some videos. There are many different ways you can do in your house, outside of your house. But the thing is that if it is not done, then we see that people get diabetes. This is the #1 cause of diabetes. They become overweight. They develop high or low blood pressure. It's amazing how many of these things can be cured just by the only thing that's missing for many people, or that's most missing. Maybe their diet is a bit off, maybe the water drinking is a bit off, but in many cases, the most important thing that's needed is the cardiovascular exercise. And if they don't do it, but if they do make a big change in their diet or their water drinking, okay, they may be able to cure their disease, but it's such a simple thing to bring in the cardio. Otherwise, the cholesterol gets elevated. Many women develop menstrual problems because of this, especially acidity, liver problems, kidney problems, various glandular thyroid problems. People think that thyroid, they can only cure those kind of problems through supplements, etc. But the fact is that we can deal with these autoimmune problems through making changes in our physical habits. Skin problems, urinary problems, influenza, so many, and of course, COVID. I got a little bit of COVID a couple of months ago, but I went on doing my exercise, running every morning. Thank goodness I got through it pretty fast. That was a major part of the reason why I could do so. So cardiovascular, important. Back to Ramesh.
Very good. Another important thing about health, which we often forget, that is the use of water, the importance of water in the body, and especially for spiritual aspirants, for sadhakas like us, water is so important because we are basically 80% water. We are floating beings in that sense. So much of our body is related to water, and so much of the body's digestive system is impacted by water. Too little water will, as we say in Ayurveda, make the body too hot, and that can produce, we are dehydrated, but in a strange way, it can cause diarrhea, because diarrhea is the body's way of cooling down. So these are some of the simple imbalances that can happen when we don't use enough water. Water is also important because it carries the carbohydrates and the proteins through the blood and eliminates excess salt, minerals, and most importantly, so many different toxic substances. So in a simple way, we could say that water helps to bring nutrients into the cells and then to bring the toxins out. And for spiritual sadhakas like us, water also helps us to feel lighter and more sattvic. Adequate water lightens the body and makes it more susceptible for more subtle vibrations, spiritual vibrations. So the use of water is so important. And then, of course, the question is, how much water? This depends on a few different things. It depends on where we live, what the temperature is. If you live in many Asian countries where it's warm summer all year round, then of course you need more water than if you live in Alaska where it's cold most of the time. So that is an important thing. But in general, we need between 12 to 16 glasses of water a day. And even doctors now say we need about 8 glasses. So in this system, we are saying this. I discovered this, the importance of water, that this has been understood by the medical community when I gave a lecture at the university here. I went to the bathroom and there was a sign to the athletes in the university saying, if your color of your urine in the afternoon is like this, that means you need to drink more water. And the color was sort of yellowish. In other words, our urine should be transparent most of the time. Only in the morning should it be on the yellow side because we are bringing out the toxins. So these are some simple things that is very important to observe and to learn about. If we are sick, we need even more water than that, maybe 16 to 20 glasses of water, because we need to get rid of toxins. And if we have skin diseases like psoriasis and other skin diseases, then even more water. So this is an important, simple key to good health, the adequate amount of water. And these are some of the secrets that you will learn more about in this course. Back to you, Dadaji.
Okay, thank you, Ramesh. Super important stuff. And during the course, we'll talk many more things about water that there's not time for here now. Exactly when to drink water, and and how much is appropriate for you individually. That's the value of having coaches. I will finish what we have here to talk about before we start to deal with our questions. And that is that from you all, and that is about kirtan. Because in our concept of naturopathy, kirtan and meditation, asanas, these yogic practices, they are a key part in the naturopathy program. There are basically 6 steps: food, fasting, water drinking, meditation, cardiovascular exercise, and so on, as well as some special physical therapies. So in the meditation category, kirtan is there. Now, what does kirtan have to do with health? Obviously, so many of our diseases are psychosomatic, especially the autoimmune diseases, for example, like asthma, skin problems. I had one of the skin cases I had, I could mention quite a few, but I'll talk of the most dramatic one in relationship to the mind. That was through some real effort. She had terrible skin. Through some real effort, she was able to clear her skin and remained perfectly fine for some years. And then suddenly, one day, her fiance broke the relationship. Immediately, her entire skin problem came back just within half a day. So the mind plays havoc on the body if it's not in a good condition. Fortunately, she came, she understood, she started doing kirtan, started doing meditation. She was actually following other physical points. That's what she needed. She hadn't been doing meditation regularly, and it got fixed, and it's been perfectly fine. It's now many years since that experience. So, and asthma is the other side of the coin of skin problems. You'll see people who have all kinds of digestive problems, ulcer problems, insomnia, depression, of course. Cancer is well known to relate to the condition of the mind. Even the immune system becomes weakened through having an anxious mind, headaches. There are so many things which happen due to anxiety, and the very, very best medicine for anxiety, it has been said a panacea, but anyway, many things are said to be a panacea, but it is a tremendous contributor, is kirtan. So I tell you that from my own personal perspective, I would literally be dead many, many times over without the kirtan. When we get so many things are happening in life, and then you get relief from. That's the only thing that brings relief, in our fragile lives. So this is what we wanted to present, Ramesh and I. And now we will start to look at the questions. I have been copying some of them. Ramesh, are you ready to answer any question? Otherwise, have you seen the questions, Ramesh?
No, I haven't looked at the questions, but I'm ready.
Dadaji, before we proceed, there is a request to have interpreter. Can we provide for South America?
It's up to you. Mean you want to open a translation room?
Yeah, but who will translate? I don't know which language. Maybe we can ask. There is in the chat here. I will read.
No, we can. Yeah, or you can say verbally right now. Is there anyone who can translate into Spanish? In that case, we'll speak more slowly. Also.
I could translate in Spanish.
Okay. So, Dada Priyaranjanan, can you open up the translation room? Who was? Can you identify yourself? Whose voice we heard just now?
Brother Amitabha.
Okay. Oh, I see. Yeah.
Dadaji, can you make me host, please? Thank you. I cannot do it.
Oh, I
have.
I thought I already did that. Okay, just one moment, please.
Also Portuguese. In South America, there's Portuguese language. So Dada Pavananji requested. I don't know if he or anybody else can translate for Portuguese persons.
Okay, Dada, you have become host. Is there anyone who wants to translate into Portuguese? Anyway, I think the Portuguese person, if they'll listen to the Spanish translation, they'll understand a lot. Very simply. So I think Dada Priyaranjanand is dealing with that. Have you isolated, Ramesh, some of the questions? Are you ready now?
Yeah. I've been looking at some of the questions.
Okay.
There's one of the first questions is very interesting, and I don't know. Do you just want me to start, or you?
Yeah, go ahead.
How do you want to do?
I'm in the midst of copying them all for myself.
Okay, so the first question here is Ajita writes, I had one friend who just passed away. She's a vegetarian for more than 20 years. In the last few years, she started to consume more organic vegetables and fruits, reduce sugar and flour intake, and so on. So in other words, she started to eat, a much more healthy diet and more alkaline diet and so on. That's what it looks like. And she did detox once or twice a year, but at the end she died of ovarian cancer. My question is, how is it possible for her to have cancer? So this is an important question. And one way to answer that is that there are three leading causes of death, at least in the Western world, that I am familiar with. That is diabetes, that is heart disease, and cancer. Diabetes 2, meaning diabetes related to lifestyle, and heart disease. And I'm saying all kinds of heart disease is 99% reversible through these kinds of practices. This is not something I'm saying personally. This is established through research. When you look at the research of Dr. Dean Ornish, Dr. Joe Furman, and so on. However, cancer is a more complex disease. And cancer often develops over time. So with this kind of a question, it is impossible to give a clear answer, because we need to look at that person's history before she started changing her diet. And so the cancer could have been developing over many, many years. And then there could have been environmental pollutions in the environment, toxins in the environment, and so on. So cancer is a much more complex situation. So that I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, I can indeed. So what could be the cause? Well, for example, she may have been eating beyond her needs. She may have been eating when she wasn't hungry. She maybe, I don't see here, it looks like maybe she wasn't doing cardiovascular exercise. We don't know what was her water drinking habits. There's as Ramesh said, there are so many possibilities of cause. What to speak of, was she doing kirtan and sufficient kirtan, what's happening with the mind? And that's why it is so valuable to be doing direct consultation with somebody who can analyze and really take her through. There's so many questions that would have been needed to ask while she, when there's a patient like that. By the way, I'm so sorry for your loss. She's your friend. At the same time, it made your question, so we're responding. Okay, let me deal with another question. I like fasting, but my problem is controlling my eating when I'm not fasting. So I didn't copy the names of the questioners, of the sources of the question. Here there are many. This is a matter of finding your own solution for it. Practice makes perfect. Time, when you burn yourself sufficient times, you learn from that. But one trick I would suggest, and that is that instead of allowing yourself to eat from any category of food when your fasting is done, you limit your eating for 1, 2, or 3 days only to fruits and vegetables. If you make a very specific categorical limitation on yourself, it'd be much, much, much easier to control yourself. I hope that this gives some level of answer. And by the way, if any of the participants like to add something to our answers, they're also welcome to do so. They can just raise their hand. Ramesh?
I would like to just add one point to that. There are 2 tools that has been working for me, and that is to use water as a snack. When you feel hungry, drink more water or tea, and to really make this something that you feel good about, because the tendency to snack or overeating is a tendency to feel good. We want some kind of pleasure. So using water or good tea is a very good way to do it. Another tool is, if you overeat, let's say in the evening, you go out with friends, have dinner, then skip the breakfast. So using these kinds of techniques as tools to create balance. Like I said in the beginning, Ayurveda says do the opposite. Too much food, well, reduce it. So using these kinds of techniques as tools and make it a positive, interesting experience.
Yeah. So did you want to deal with another question, Ramesh? Or I should go ahead?
One simple question, warm or cold water?
Dada, Sheila Bhadrananda wants to add something. Go ahead, Dada.
Okay.
Thank you. Just very briefly on this question about controlling eating when I'm not fasting. If the mind is relaxed when we eat our meal, that's very helpful. So I would say half bath, even though it might, even if, we have done meditation and then we take our meal, but that cooling down of the body through half bath is very effective in putting us in a relaxed state of mind when we eat our meal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very good point.
Thank you, Dadaji. Go ahead, Ramesh.
Yeah, so one question is warm or cold water? This is a really good question. And in general, lukewarm or warm water is better than cold water. In Ayurveda, the digestive system is considered like a fire. We can think of it as a symbolic fire, the Agni, in our system. If we pour cold water on that fire, it will go out. So we need to keep the digestive system somewhat warm. And so cold water will cool down and even reduce our Agni or our digestive power. So room temperature water, if it's very hot, extremely hot, then of course some cooler water is okay, but generally warmer or room temperature water.
And I would add to that nevertheless, in any way that you can get water inside of your body, like some people, they don't they don't want to, they only want to have very hot water. They want to drink tea, herbal tea or something like that. So they can, no problem. It is better to take hot water than to take no water. Of course, ice water, if one is constantly taking ice water, eventually it can make some trouble. Nevertheless, what Ramesh said is, if the water is body temperature, which means slightly warm, in normal circumstances, that's the best. All right, let me deal with another question here. And that is, on a 100% fruit-based diet, do I need to drink more water than that provided by fruit? That is something which is very individual. You have to see for yourself, and it depends what kind of fruits you're eating also. Because if you eat a larger amount of bananas or avocados, for example, then of course you're going to need water. But if the fruits you're eating are mostly melons and grapes and very watery fruits, then you won't need as much water. So you see what you need, but in any case, normally you want to wait about 1 hour after you eat before you drink. And so if you are in the habit of drinking the right amount of water, what you really need, even on normal days, you will feel the thirst yourself. Your thirst wakes up. If you have not been drinking sufficient water, then you cannot be dependent just on your thirst because it is artificial at that time. So it is better to drink a little bit of water frequently. Even when you're on a fruit diet, it's not going to hurt you to do so. But a sufficient gap between the meal and the water drinking. Ramesh?
Yeah. Let's see here. Is there any individual session for personal health consultation during the course? Maybe you can take that, Dadaji.
Yeah, definitely. That is a possibility that we make very clearly available from the first introductory session that you'll receive with your coach. It'll be like 6 days in advance of the beginning of the course. That means I think it'll be on the 15th of September. You will all meet with your coaches in your group. You'll decide a time which is appropriate for your meeting and you will meet. And at that time, the coach may begin to understand whether some individuals are going to need some individual consultation or they have very personal things that they don't want to talk about in the group. As far as we can speak in the group, it's better because first of all, it will help the others who are in the group. And second of all, there may come some input from others who are in the group. It's better. But as personal consultation is really needed, the coaches will make themselves available for sure. Okay, Ramesh?
For the yogic diet, is it best to eat not more than twice a day? That's a good question. And I would say the answer to that is individual. In Ayurveda, the answer would be that for a kapha person and sometimes even for pitta, to eat just twice a day is the best because there's a tendency to overeat. And so then to give more time between the meal is good, especially for kapha and especially for someone who wants to lose weight. For a vata person, a thinner, very active person that tends not to eat regular meals, it is actually important to have regular meals and 3 small meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, because they tend to skip meals, and then that will affect the nutritional level in the body. So that's how I tend to suggest this. It is very individual. For some, 3 meals is important. For others, 2 meals are sufficient and better.
Okay. And I will add something to that, and that is that Baba Shishanandamurti, he mentioned that if we can eat only twice a day or even only once a day, it is a good thing to do. However, the usual response of a person who limits the number of times they eat below their desire is that they will, during that single meal or those two meals, they will tend to overeat. And overeating is not good. So for a person who has that kind of tendency, eating 3 times a day is better if they will eat a reasonable amount and not overeat. It's a factor. Okay, now I want to take the question of, there's a question here which is, please advise for epilepsy, if possible. Thank you. And this is so interesting because people think that, the doctors think that epilepsy is a very, very complicated condition and it requires really continual medication in order to control it. I have experience of a fair number of cases of epilepsy. It means, for those of you who don't know what is epilepsy, the person will suddenly have a fit. They're not conscious of it. They may fall down. They may start shaking. They can bite their tongue. They can unintentionally harm others. And it's not only very difficult, very harmful for their nerve system and exhausting, but psychologically, it's very, very, very disturbing for the individual, and especially if others see around. But the surprising thing is that if the individual will detox and will then maintain a very healthy lifestyle, not taking fried food, and the other things that we were speaking about, they can become freed from the epilepsy. This has been my experience in every case, that as long as they continued to follow, it went well. And if they didn't follow, then the condition came back. And then again, if they started to follow, it went away. So yeah, epilepsy is very, of course, I don't think that we can prescribe directly and without ambiguity, without uncertainty, just like this in a webinar. It also depends other conditions of the individual. We'd need to see the individual case. Ramesh?
Then next question, what are your thoughts on the keto diet? So a ketogenic diet is a diet generally high in fat, and usually also high in animal fat. So of course, as vegetarians, we do not recommend that, but you can also be a vegan and have a keto diet. I worked with a diabetic that had incredible results, who became a vegan and followed an alkaline diet per our system and did really well. The insulin level went down from 120 units to 20 units. Then we discovered that he was diabetes 1, meaning his pancreas were not working. Now, after he left my coaching, he was introduced to Duke University, a famous university hospital here in the United States. They did not figure out or take time to discover that he was addicted to food, and they put him on a keto diet, and then he ended up in the hospital with a burst gallbladder and almost died. So a keto diet high in fat is not a recommended diet. It is also very acidic because it is so high in fat. People are using it because they're losing weight, within a short span, but then long term, it will have adverse effects on the various organs.
Okay. And now I see that there's lots of questions coming. So I think for the translation, by the way, maybe something can be done with the recording later on, if somebody wants to accompany that. So there's a question here, would it be damaging to do, instead of 1 day of dry Ananamarga fasting, do 2 days straight once a month, and the second monthly fasting day stays just 1 day? It sounds like you're increasing the number of fasting days to 3, means 2 at once, and then the second time you're doing 1 day. So the question is whether it is harmful, essentially, to do 2 days of dry fasting in a row. When we are treating people, we don't normally get into, we're not encouraging so much dry fasting, but those who have experience with it, it is of course good to do. It is the most detoxing of all. If one's health is very good, it is possible to do 2 days of dry fasting in a row. It's even possible to do 3 in a row. I'm not going to encourage it. At the same time, if somebody gets into it gradually and they're really enthusiastic about it, then I'm also not going to discourage it. So, and I don't have much experience of that, but I know many people who do. So yes, simply speaking, it's possible. Ramesh?
From the concept of biodecoding, there are also emotions hidden behind diseases. What do you think? Yeah, absolutely. The emotional and mental relationship to disease is there. In many ways, we could say there are 2 causes, one physical and one emotional, mental. So absolutely, there's a direct link between most diseases and our emotional state of being. Are yogi feeding guidelines independent of physical constitution, doshas? I think that the way that I would answer that is that the yogic system and the Ayurvedic system is very, very compatible. And so, so when you use Ayurveda for yogis, you need to use Ayurveda for the sattvic diet in Ayurveda, because some Ayurvedic doctor will not prescribe a sattvic diet or sattvic remedies. So, so yes, they are compatible.
I would
How
like to
increase
remind.
stomach acid as it tends to decrease with age.
Yeah.
So that's a. You want to take that?
No, Ramesh, you say what you wanted to say.
So yeah. So when we say that we want to have an alkaline diet, what is meant by that is a diet that is easy to digest, that doesn't tax the different organs and what is called the buffer system between the stomach, the digestive system, and the bloodstream, because the bloodstream needs to be alkaline, and it always is alkaline, otherwise we'll die. But the stomach needs to be very acidic. The bloodstream is 7.36 in pH and a little bit more than that. The stomach, however, is around 3 in pH, so very acidic. So ways to keep that strong is to eat a light alkaline diet, not to have too much stress, and not to overeat, to drink adequate water, and so on. That will keep that digestive fire strong, using things like ginger in the food, and as ginger tea will also increase the digestive fire. Fennel is also good for digestion, and so on. So there are many ways to keep that fire going, and that's why this is a great question, because as we get older, we need to keep that fire stoked.
Okay. we are actually going to try to finish about 10:30, give or take some minutes. So there's going to be questions that we don't get the chance to deal with. But anyway, so let me try to deal more briefly. And that is, please advise diet for rheumatoid arthritis. I'm sure she means, or he means. I've had quite a few cases of rheumatoid arthritis. And very, very simply speaking, the detox diet and the alkaline, it really works step by step. Without going into any more detail, it will work. I don't want to try to give a detailed diet. Another point is, can you guide how to detox by eating only fruits and vegetables? You know, if of course we should not eat we shouldn't eat more than 3 times a day, and preferably the fruits are in meals separately from the vegetable, although tomatoes and cucumbers are fruits and no problem if they're with the vegetables. Raw is better than cooked, but you know, if a person has a need, then in that case the cooked is maybe even better than the raw for somebody who gets too much gas from raw food and so on. And it is not complicated. If you're just on a diet of fruits and vegetables 3 times a day, you're going to see a good result from that. Last I'll do before I turn, before Ramesh, you answer some question here is, I want to join the Tantric Rejuvenation schedule from 21 to 25. However, I'm not available on the 21st and can only join from 22nd. Will I be able to catch up if I miss day 1? Sure. You'll get some introduction on the 15th. You can deal with your coach about that. And maybe recording can also be made. Not can, but will be made if nobody objects to each coaching meeting. So then you can view some vital points that came up on the 21st. So no problem. Ramesh?
Yeah, there's one question on behalf of Rameshwara who says, I was diagnosed with hiatus hernia, acid reflux, and gastritis. Please advise. Yeah, so this system of long-term juice fasting and an alkaline diet will help heal these kinds of problems. I was working recently with a guy who had diverticulitis and was scheduled for operation. And he went through a 7-day juice fast and a 30-day graduated fast, eating only fruits and vegetables. He went to the doctor, and the doctor called the secretary and said, this must be the wrong guy because he doesn't have a problem. So a clear example of how long-term fasting and cleansing can heal these kinds of diseases. It's quite amazing. I'm shocked every time, you know, this happens. So yes, tell Rameshwara to attend the Tantric Rejuvenation program.
Dadaji, there is a question in the Q&A chat. This is from beginning already. Sorry.
What is it? What
Yeah,
is the question?
yeah, I can read from Himani. Namaskar Dadaji, I got skin problem, psoriasis, for about more than 15 years. What should I eat in my everyday meals? Can I have just only vegetables and fruits and some seeds? Can I eat raw vegetable or steam or boiled vegetable?
Yeah. Of all the diseases that I've been speaking about so far, I've had maximum experience with skin problems. Surely, if it's a diet of just fruits and vegetables for some time, even without the nuts, and seeds, then you're going to see step by step, you're going to see your psoriasis improving, unless there's some aspect of it which is very, you know, I mean, this is almost always the case, that when you detox, you're going to see a very, very good result in your skin. Did I answer the question fully enough there? Yeah, because you know there's a difference between how you will eat when you're in the process of curing it, and when the symptoms are gone, and then you are slowly going back toward normal diet. Very simply speaking, you cannot jump back to normal diet straight away, or the skin problem may come back. You have to go very, very, very gradually back toward normal diet. And along the way, you may find that the skin problem again starts to return. Then you have to go back to the more subtle diet for some time. Again, after some days or weeks, again, you try to go in the direction of a more normal diet. And slowly, slowly, this adjustment takes place and works. It doesn't mean that eventually you can go back to eating sugar and fried foods, but in some cases, one can. But in most cases, sugar is no good for the rest of the life for such a person where they had very serious psoriasis.
I saw one
To add
question.
on-
Sorry.
To add on the previous one, I mean, for skin disease, also need to drink a lot of water, like
Absolutely.
around 6 liters of water per day.
Yeah, 5 to 6 liters of water. The question was only about diet, so I hadn't mentioned the water. There's many things. You should do sweating, and you know, there are appropriate asanas for it. So I was only answering regarding diet, but water drinking is super important, and preferably a good amount of that is lemon water.
I'm not
There's
sure.
one
There is one question here. I think it's already answered. I'm not sure about vaccine. After you get vaccination, I think it's relevant for many of us who after getting vaccination.
Okay, Ramesh, are you ready?
There's one. Yeah,
Answer
maybe it's the same question. There's one person that got vaccinated in May of 21, but still got infected by COVID. Thanks to Bob, I'm still alive though, and he's taking different supplements, but is still feeling that the body is weak and sleepy. My bowel movements are regular, and I drink enough water. Is this sleepy and weaker feeling because I was locked down for 10 days? Please tell me what to do. Well, it is, you know, COVID is a very powerful, and especially the Delta virus is a very powerful virus. And if the body is affected by that, there will be a period of tiredness and maybe sleepiness and so on, and feeling of weakness. So that is natural. At the same time, you're doing some of the good things by taking vitamin D and C and zinc. In addition, make sure you have a very nutritious diet with lots of green vegetables, fruits, and good plant-based proteins, lentils, tofu, you know, healthy food, so that you can gradually get your strength back. Daji?
Yeah, and at the same time, you're feeling sleepy, so make sure that you get enough sleep in the night. And in addition to that, you may need to take some short naps during the day, because if you force yourself not to sleep and you have this feeling of exhaustion, it will just go on and on. So it's better to get well rested, and then you'll see you can feel much better from that. But don't sleep too much. So it means when you lie down during the daytime, use an alarm. Fix the time, maybe 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes. If you couldn't get enough sleep in the night, if it was really extreme, then it'll be a bit more. But that's important for the COVID patient.
There's one question here from Bhaskar. It is written in Ananda Mitra's book that we should eat fruits. There are not many details on this point. What is the view on exclusive eating of raw fruits, leaves, and vegetables? I have looked for an Ayurvedic therapist, and because I'm Vata Pitta, they are against an exclusive fruit diet. Yeah, again, you know, this depends on your body constitution. Generally, an exclusive raw diet for Vata is not suggested and not a good thing. It is better to have more soupy, warmer foods, and especially if the climate is cold. So I think the advice you're getting from your Ayurvedic people is right on. At the same time, some Ayurvedic doctors are very extreme against raw food, so they can be a little too dogmatic regarding that. So a balance, some raw food, but you can balance that with other warmer food. So, like for example, have a salad with a soup, for example. So in this way, you can balance this for a Vata constitution.
Yeah, and I'm going to say something that will surprise even Ramesh maybe, and that is sometimes people who have that kind of sensitivity, if they heat up the fruit, I don't say cook it, just heat it until it gets hot, and then they eat it. They can get a very, you know, they'll be fine with that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, Daji. Yeah, this is using Ayurveda right there by warming food up. So like in the wintertime, in the morning, I eat warm fruits. I just warm it up. So yeah, excellent suggestion.
Now, then there is a question regarding vertigo. It means dizziness. Vertigo is in most cases happening because, like for example, it may happen when a person stands up. So when the individual is lying down, this is from Tisha in India, and namaskar to you, by the way. And when the person is lying down, their toxins tend to withdraw, and they start to also move toward exiting from the body very, very slowly. But when you stand up, the flow of blood, it causes the toxins suddenly to start to rush, especially in the head. So the movement of the toxins makes the person dizzy. The same thing can happen when an individual is fasting, because the toxins start coming out from where they were hidden. So moving around, the gas inside the body can increase. Where there was no fermentation, it may start occurring. These can cause what we call healing symptoms, slight healing symptoms. And coaches are very familiar with what to do when such a thing takes place. In any case, we do need a detoxing diet, but we don't want to lower our blood pressure in the process. So care has to be taken. It needs to be prescribed individually, and there should be sufficient exercise, but not excessive exercise. It may be good that the person does a real good amount of walking in the open air. This you can deal with in more detail. I know you're planning to join the Tantric Rejuvenation program, Tisha, so you can get some very specific detailed guidance at that time. Okay, I think we maybe should continue, maybe just like 5 minutes more. Oh, it says here, I see right now, the seminar from 21 to 25, will it be the same schedule as today? No, absolutely not. You're going to be in smaller groups of a maximum of 10. Might be as small as 4 or 5. We, you know, in this moment, we don't know, but very likely the group size will be 7, 8, 9, 10, like that. And you will discuss inside of your group when online at first, through written correspondence, when is the appropriate time for your meeting, and you will customize when the meeting time is going to be. It'll be convenient for all of you, and everyone in the group will be in similar time zone. It's not a global meeting. Ramesh?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that in the chat, Dadaji Chilabhadrananda provided the URL to register for the course. Also, you can go online at naturalyogictreatment.org and then look for the Tantric Rejuvenation course from 21st to the 25th of September. It would be wonderful if all of you can attend that amazing course.
Yeah.
One person was asking about pancreatitis, pain in the left side. Now, we cannot diagnose, of course, these things here, and we cannot say, yes, you have pancreatitis. But in general, this could be something going on in the pancreas. Yes, it could also be in the small or large intestine. There could be different issues. But generally, these are signs of inflammation and acidity and so on. But to be sure, you may need to get a diagnostics from a doctor, and then when you know exactly what it is, you can then decide. But in general, these kinds of problems are easily taken care of with long-term fasting and an alkaline diet.
There's a question from somebody who has had eczema since he or she was 18 months old. And I think there's an excellent chance that through detoxing, effect will come, but I don't want to guarantee it because if the eczema is there from the age of 1.5 years old, there could be some other cause. But you know, because the detoxification can easily come, even from the mother, even in a breastfed diet. But we have to see. Yeah. So I did speak of psoriasis before. The same thing applies for eczema. Then, okay. So should we draw a close to all of this, Ramesh, or you want to deal with another question? I'm sorry, we're not able to answer all the questions.
I think we covered most of them. Yeah, I think it is, maybe you can say a little bit more about the seminar, Dadaji, because I think everyone that has attended today will greatly benefit from attending that seminar.
Yeah. So I think it is, we cannot guarantee that we're going to be making these kind of long fasting programs again and again. The last one we made, it was, last year, quite some time ago. It takes a lot of organizing to put it together. Many people have been working hard for it. So I would say that please do take advantage of this opportunity. It's very, it's flexible financially according to your capacity. It's a very good opportunity. The courses that we've done before were mostly non-Margis, but we made we especially have aimed this at members of an Ananda Marga and other spiritually developing people like that. So you'll see in the chat, and I suggest that you immediately copy it, or however you came to hear about today's webinar. There's also a webinar landing page, and if you go there, you'll also see the link to the detox program itself. Please exploit us. We are made ourselves available for your use, and there are all the unanswered questions tonight in the program that we've been doing just now. They'll get a chance to be answered during the coaching itself. So this is a tremendous opportunity, and I hope to see that 100% of you get the chance to participate in this. Dada Sheila Bhadrananda, would you like to add anything more about the course, the Tantric Rejuvenation course?
And I think you've covered it, Dadaji and Ramesh ji. It's been a very wonderful presentation by both of you. And yeah, I can just encourage everyone to take advantage of this program, which has been a long time in the planning and hopefully many of you will benefit, and share it with all of your friends and networks so that we can get a maximum participation for the coming program. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Dadaji.
All right, Dada Priyaranjananda, if you can play a final short kirtan, then we can finish up. And with our great thanks to everybody who's been, so much effort has been going on to make today's program and the coming program successful. So thank you very, very much to everybody on every level. Dada Priyaranjananda, we can all mute and sing with you and finish it like that. Thank you all so very much.
Bhavanam Kevala Bhavanam Bhavanam Mo Kevalam Bhavanam Kevala Bhavanam Bhavanam Mo Kevalam Bhavanam Kevalam Bhavanam Kevalam Bhavanam Kevalam Bhavanam Kevalam Bhavanam Kevalam Bhavanam Bhavanam Kevalam Bhavanam Kevalam Bhavanam Bhavanam Kevalam Bhavanam Kevalam Bhavanam Kevalam Bhavanam Kevalam Bhavanam Kevalam Bhavanam Kevalam Bhavanam Bhavanam Kevalam Bhavanam Kevalam Bhavanam Bhavanam Kevalam Bhavanam Kevalam Bhavanam Kevalam Bhavanam Kevalam Bhavanam Kevalam Rampita Baba Ki Jai Baba.
Jai.